Well, the one the one time, um, must have been, geez, I don't know how old I was. I must have been 18. It was more playing around and a little bit of hunting at the same time, but more a little playing around. And it was me and my sister and one of my other friends. We went up the river, up the East Branch, and we're looking for a spot to hunt geese. And it's pretty late in the spring already, so the ice was kind of getting to the point where you shouldn't be on it anymore, in the little channels, anyways. And we went adventuring into one channel that we probably should never gone into because the water was moving quite fast underneath, so the ice was getting thinner from underneath. Um, but that was probably the closest experience to where I probably would never came back. Um, I actually sunk my snow machine in that channel, and me and my sister were hanging on to the machine. I don't know why, maybe because I love the snow machine, but um, I came close to the edge and I had a bunch of mud on my ski, and I don't know why, but I foolishly went by the edge to just to get the mud off while I'm driving slow, and the ice was rotten at the edge, and my front end sunk in, and I jumped off the machine and it started going down, and I grabbed the bumper, and I was hanging on to it. My sister ran over, she grabbed on the bumper with me, and we tried to hold it there. And then we got the other person to jump on the snow machine to go get more help at a cabin not far away. And they went the wrong way. They went further into the channel. And I was yelling and screaming at them that, they're going the wrong way, but they couldn't hear me because they're on the snow machine. So they kept going. And I was like, oh crap. You know, they might sink too. Anyways, we were holding the machine and nobody was coming to help us. So I was like, you know what? We can't just stand here and hold this. We let it go. So we let go of the machine, and it went down about another half of it and stopped. You could still see the end of the bumper. I was like, oh, good. So we started trying to walk back to the cabin to go get help, and plus I had another snow machine there to go after the person that went the wrong way. So we started. It was an island where I sunk my machine, and we started walking on the left side of the island. We got probably three-quarters of the way out, and I started looking really rough, and so we were kind of watching where we were walking. I was walking in front, my sister was walking behind me, following me, and all of a sudden I fell through, right through the ice, went, and I came up, and I grabbed onto the ice, and my sister dove toward me and grabbed me, and pulled me back onto the ice. I mean, that happened really fast, like just like the ice so from underneath me. So, I mean, things happened real fast, and I was lucky that I didn't go under the ice with that strong current there. And my sister grabbed me and pulled me up onto the ice. So, and after that, like she was scared. I was pretty shook up too, and she was crying. And but then, so I said, we better go around the other side. We're walking around to the other side of the island to try to get back to the main east branch so we could walk to that house to get the other snow machine. And once we got out closer to the other side, we noticed that the ice was looking pretty rough too, but there was like a skidoo trail that people were using all winter, so the ice was a little bit thicker there, but it was a really narrow spot, and you could see the dark ice all around it. Like, it's not good. So we started walking, and then like the ice started making noise, and I'm like, I think we better crawl, spread our weight out, and we started crawling across the skidoo trail to get to the good ice on East Branch. So we crawled out and we made it to that ice, and then we started walking to the cabin. We got halfway to the cabin, and the people at the cabin seen us and came to us, picked us up, and then went to the cabin. I picked up the other snow machine and I booked it to back into that place, and then into the channel where the snow machine went. They were probably about, I don't know, 3 or 4 kilometers in, and they noticed that they were going the wrong way. They were kind of scared too, so they actually went to the shore and stayed up on the shore with the snow machine, and they put an SOS with snow. Yeah, I mean, these are people that never been traveling much, so it was good that they made a sign, and they, you know, it was a good idea that they went to shore and stopped. You know, when you're unsure of where you're going, it's probably best to stop, or you know, not to go any further than into areas that you don't know. So that is the one time that I came pretty close to not making it back home yet.
For people that have never experienced it, what does that cold water feel like when you go in?
It's actually for a couple of seconds, it just feels really cold. Then after a while, it's just like a bunch of needles poking you, and it hurts. Yeah, but we started moving right away to try to warm up. So yeah, so I mean, if it was anywhere else any further, it might have been a different story. So we were fortunate that we weren't too far away from a cabin. And those kind of things I learned from that experience. I learned from it, and we try to be as prepared as possible for anything that could happen. So I'm always keeping matches or lighters and Ziploc bags and stuff. Always carrying communication devices now. So because you just never know, things can turn so fast. So.
And also the weight of your clothes in the water too could have contributed to you falling through that second time. You're a lot heavier than normal.
Yeah.
And for your sister, what did she feel about the whole situation with you?
I don't know. I don't think we ever talked about it after that. It was something that she probably never wants to experience again, or it was a scary time for the both of us. Because it could have gone either way. I might not have been here telling the stories. And she might not have been here too. It's just we're fortunate that we are, and that we learned from our mistake that things could happen, and you're not in control of things that may happen, but you are in control of how ready you are for things that do happen. And if you're not ready, then sometimes you might not make it home.
Do you ever go out alone much, or do you always try and go with someone?
Yeah, I always try to take somebody with me, but if nobody's available because of the busy schedule or whatever it might be, I always make sure that I carry communication devices. InReach is amazing. They can watch where you're going, and also you can text from anywhere. Tell them that you're okay or if you need help. So that way it's okay. It's always nice to have somebody, to share those moments with you when you're out hunting or traveling or whatever. But, you could always share it on Facebook and social media too. And hey, man, I should have just came. I told you, Sometimes it's hard for people to get away from civilization and, the internet and stuff like that, because we've gone so, we adapted to it so much. So, like, it's a part of our lives now. It's almost impossible to not look at your phone for one day, right? And if you really haven't experienced living out on the land and just love being out there, and you're okay with being out there for a month or 2 months or a half a year, and it's a different lifestyle. But I've adapted to both lifestyles. I have to, otherwise, I fall behind. And with the work that I do, I need to know how to use these tools. And also, I work with on the land programs and things like that. So so I'm good on both sides. I keep in touch with both sides of the world.
And especially with your business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Delta this spring with COVID. A lot of families were out there. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that was, it was a sad thing that this COVID thing came around. I mean, it happened, and Canada wasn't prepared. The world wasn't prepared for it. But the government was giving some money out to Indigenous groups, and the Inuvialuit IRC was giving out some funds for people that wanted to go to their cabins for the spring. So that was really helpful for a lot of people. And while we were out at our cabin for the spring, we had our radios on and communicate with all the other cabin owners and people that were out with cabins. And I tell you, it was just like when I was growing up, when we had Trapper's radio. My dad would always turn the radios on in the morning, and then we'd listen to people throughout the whole Mackenzie Delta and the coastal areas, which was really nice because the elders would be talking in Inuvialuit, and there'd be people in the Gwich'in Settlement Region talking in their language, and then the elders from each settlement regions talking to each other, but in English. And you know when the birds were coming. I mean, we still do through social media, but I mean, this was before social media, internet, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, there was internet, but I mean, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have all these devices that we have now. And, so that was kind of our smartphone back then, was our Trapper's radio, which was nice. You'd always hear Emma and Sarah talking on the radio, and, people interrupting each other, but I mean, they can't hear somebody else talking, but you just laugh because somebody else would jump on it, and we just laugh about it. But and Neil Collin talking to other people in the Delta here, we hear Paula Tuck, we'd hear Tuck and people at Husky Lake, and so it was always nice to hear elders and also people talking and hearing the call signs. Those were fun. Ours was 999. We had lots of other people had their own call signs, and but now we just use marine radios, and that's what we use this spring. And they have a pretty good range if you have them up high, the antenna up high enough. So we could hear Kalinek, people down on the west coast in that area, as far as close to Shell Bay area. So it was good. We could hear a lot of people talking, and it reminded me of back in the day when people used to go to their cabins and do communications that way, and get up in the morning, turn the radio on, have a cup of coffee, look at the Mackenzie, watch the geese start to fly around again, and hear people, good morning, and they start talking away, and so it was good. And I think a lot of people reconnected with the land with, what they've been missing. And it's too bad it had to come to the virus to make us come back to the land, but it was good to see and good to hear. And a lot of people were harvesting, so that was good. And some new cabins gone up too, so, there was funding for that. And we hope that, well, I hope anyways, that Inuvialuit still, even though if this does clear up, that there's still some kind of funding, that way people can still go out in the spring, help with groceries and gas, because those are the two main items that you need, is food and gas. And with the problems of employment right now, and things happening the way they are, it's pretty tough to go out and harvest and continue the lifestyle that some people like to live out on the land. So it was good to have that funding, and we hope it continues, even though we might not get it from the federal government, that Inuvialuit finds some way to help their people with this program, because it went really well, and a lot of people took advantage of it, but just really enjoyed it.
And what about being out there this spring and with COVID-19 and the lockdown restrictions? You noticed there were, aside from experienced hunters and people that usually are out there, did you notice there were inexperienced people taking more of a liking to being out there or trying?
Yeah, we've seen new faces, new hunters come out. And the one thing that when this pandemic started, and then the restrictions, and you're pretty much staying with your own family, and this is when it first came into effect, and so really we couldn't have any visitors or things like that. So trying to teach other people was kind of a hard thing because you're kind of worried about the virus and the safety of your family and that kind of stuff. But we did see quite a few new people going out and hunting, either with their family members or with friends. So it was good to see. There was a lot more new hunters, and I thought it was a good thing that to see all these new faces out. They're experiencing these areas that they never hunted before. You see them out hunting maybe caribou or something like that. But then they're going out hunting geese and muskrats and beavers and those kind of. So I mean, it was really good to see. Yeah.
You getting any interest from, now that they're starting to open things up, people calling from Yellowknife if they want to come up here, have a guided tour, stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, there was a one phone call there. If this does continue for some time, that may, I mean, we're already looking into it, but NWT, just the residents of Northwest Territories having a package for them, for them to come experience the North, or maybe even just the residents here. Some of them want to get out and some of them want to go. They're used to their vacations, and sometimes I guess it's pretty hard to get outside of Canada now, and most of their vacations are outside international. So I mean, the North, especially up here, there's a lot to offer. I mean, we live it. We know it's something that I wouldn't go anywhere else to do. It's something that we can show them, and it's the residents of Inuvik or whoever in the Northwest Territories. There's a lot to see. They just don't know it's there.
I wonder if families would pay money to go out to Kendall Island during the whaling season just to watch,
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that would take some time to do because you'd still have to work with the HDCs and go through the screening committee and make sure everybody's okay with it. That there's no beluga hunting with residents that are not beneficiaries or the Gwich'in beneficiaries. Those kind of things. So I have an idea of how much work it takes to start these kind of things. And if it's something that we choose to do, then it might not happen this year, maybe next year or the year after, because I know how much work it takes, because I've been on these committees for a long time, and I know the chain of command and how it works, and so everybody has to be okay with it, and it takes time. So
Yeah, and just getting back to being on the Dolphin Spring, talk a little bit about your family. I'm really interested in you passing down what you know to your children.
mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about little Open?
Yeah. Just checking if I have any boogers. Just shiny talking. Yeah. I just laugh now because every time I see bloopers now, I'm going to be on there. But that's
Put
okay.
them on your teeth, you're good.
Terry Kustoon and Roy Artan of bloopers.
Yeah.
Never know what those guys will say.
Yeah, we well, throughout the winter, I mean, these are the kind of things that people that travel on the land, that keep an eye on the land, that do harvesting from the land, or go to the cabins every weekend or whenever they can. We noticed throughout the winter that it was a really cold winter, and we have to keep making a hole in the ice to get water every weekend. So every weekend we're pretty much ice checking, right? So throughout the whole winter we noticed that the ice was getting really thick. And when we went out in middle of March to spring out for the spring, we noticed when we're making the ice hole that it's quite thicker than normal. Well, I wouldn't say normal. In recent years, it's actually back to normal, pretty much. It was always around 4 feet ice, 3.5 feet ice, all the time when I was growing up. Because I remember I had to chisel a hole and it took forever. My mom wanted to go fishing. She'd tell me to go make a hole and I'd be like reaching way down trying to scoop up the ice. And so, I mean, that was normal. And then last 10, 15 years, it's 2.5, 2 feet ice. It wasn't very thick. That it's always been around 2 feet ice. And this spring we noticed that it was about 4 feet ice and a lot of snow too. So we knew that the potential of flooding was there. So as the spring went on, as the ice came up on the edge, and they call it booptak, the ice come up on the edge, and the ice is floating. We noticed that we had the snow machines on there and we're hunting geese in the Mackenzie. And the last day that we went hunting geese, the next day I took the snow machines off the ice. I was watching the conditions of the ice and I said it's getting pretty close to starting to shift around. I think we better take the snow machines off. And we skipped the snow machines to the land, to our cabin, and the next day the ice started shifting. So and after that it was kind of just stick around the cabin and rest time. You just take a rest and enjoy the scenery and enjoy family time and listen to the radio. So that's what we did, and cleaned up around the yard and got things ready for the potential of a flood. And that's the things that I taught the kids, was to always watch the conditions. I told them, when we're getting water every weekend, you notice how much the ice has gotten thicker and, the snow conditions. And I said, you got to keep all these in mind when you're preparing to do something like spring out. Because, I mean, if you're not ready for something that may happen, then, you could get stuck or hurt. So these are the things that I taught the kids. And, the family knew that the potential of the flood might be there because of the conditions. And so we were ready. We had the plan. We had a plan in place in case something happens. And when that day came, we were, 90% ready. We just had to get stuff together in a bag and throw it in a boat, and away we go. We were hoping we didn't have to do that, but we had to this spring. When the last night we were there, in the morning I was having a cup of coffee, and Diane was holding the baby, and I was having my cup of coffee looking out in the Mackenzie, and we're probably maybe a foot, 10 inches from the water coming up over the edge. It's gotten pretty close, and then it started dropping again the day before. And I was having my cup of coffee in the morning, watching the water, and it was moving a little bit. So I just kept an eye on it, having my cup of coffee, and as I'm drinking my cup of coffee, I could see the water coming up inch by inch as I'm having my cup of coffee. And I looked back and I told Dan, I said, the water's coming up. And, I said pretty quick too, but I just keep having my cup of coffee and kept an eye on it. By the time I was done with my cup of coffee, it was right level with the land there. And I was like, that water's coming up fast. I think we better start trying to get ready to go. Pack our stuff, our clothes anyway, and everything else is pretty much packed away. And so got the kids up. The kids are still sleeping because, you're on bush time, and kids stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning and get up at 1, 2 in the afternoon. But that's kids' bush life out of the camp. I mean, that's what I did when I was growing up. So kids got up and they looked outside and they're like, holy. I was like, yeah, I think we're going to get ready to go here. So we started packing up. I told Zayden we better go outside and get some gas out of that drum, because that one drum was 3/4 full yet, and we need to take some of the gas out of there. And I didn't want that gas to go floating away. So as we're doing that, we're outside. Diane and I were inside getting the stuff ready to go, packing up lunchbox and, our gear, our clothes, our communication devices. And while we're outside getting the gas out of the drum, behind the house is a little bit lower spot, and that spot was filling up with water in behind the cabin. As we're getting the gas out of the drum, we look back and the water's rushing in the back of behind the house into the little pond. And as we're still getting the gas out of the drums, the water starts creeping over the top of the bank, and as we're getting the gas out on the by the drums there, these little low spots were filling up with water beside us. And we're like, I told him, "Oh, this water's coming up quick." He's like, "Really?" No, nobody panicked. Everybody kept calm. And which was really good. The kids experienced something that I think is a good learning experience for them. That these are the kind of things that they need to be prepared for, in case they do in the future when they get older want to spend time out in the land like this. That this experience is going to help them. And as we were getting ready to leave, the Kalinek channel flows into the Mackenzie, and the water was coming up so fast that the channel reversed. The water started flowing upriver, and the ice from the Mackenzie started coming in, and it was bank to bank on the Kalinek channel, big thick ice. It was coming toward the camp, and I said, "We better get going. We're almost ready to go, so we better get going." And look at that ice, it's coming. And we weren't quite ready to go yet, and we're still putting stuff in the boat. But for some reason, just before the cabin, that wall of ice bank to bank was just staying right there, just going like this. It didn't come in any closer. And then after we got into the boat and left, the let go on came in. So it was a special time for us to see that. We thought maybe somebody was looking out for us and, keeping us safe, making sure we get out of there. So those are the kind of things that, I teach my kids, that these are the kind of things that you need to be aware of. And it was a really good experience. Even though we had to leave a little bit earlier than we wanted to, we're a bit worried about the cabin too, and I think it was the next day I came. I think it was the next day I came to the cabin.
I remember you were sharing photos.
Yeah, went to the cabin, and the next day the ice was just receding back past the cabin, and we had to sit and wait for about an hour, and then it just finally got past the cabin, and we drove up to the house and went to go grab all of our geese, because our freezers was full of food and the generator wasn't running, so everything was still frozen. But we went and retrieved the freezers, and then we went back to town, grabbed whatever we needed, and went back to town. And the water still rose a little bit more, probably another half a foot, but didn't get into the cabin, so it was good. Everything was okay. All the wood that me and Zayden did all spring, we lost maybe half of it, but it was something that was a good workout. We went and check our traps in the morning, muskrat traps in the morning, and we in this area where we're getting wood and trapping at the same time, there's a lot of dry wood, and I said, well, we might as well get a load of wood while we're here. And then at night, we'll go check the traps, get a load of wood. So we're getting 2 loads of wood every day for a few weeks. And by the time we're done muskrat trapping, we had this big pile of wood. And he's like, look at all this wood we got. It's like 4 to 5 cords of wood. And he's like, how much is that worth? I don't know. They're about $400 a piece for a cord. He's like, we should sell it. I was like, no way. I was like, this is for the cabin. And then some of the water took it away, but he's like, man, all our wood is gone. I know some of it's still there, but I mean, the cabin's still there, everything's still there. The wood is replaceable, so we'll just have to go out again.
Now the water's up again, bringing more wood up the river, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
How does that happen? Is it Liard flood or something?
That was something that I wanted to know. I mean, where did all that water come from? In the Liard River? That's some questions that I had. Like, I'm sure they're wondering too. I mean, I don't know if there was a big rain. If it had to do with a dam, because last time a dam broke like that, there was a lot of water like that, and a lot of trees came down too. Because I remember that one tree that came down must have come from the yard, and it was huge. I got that piece of it. I got 2 blocks that could fit in the back of my truck. Like my 18-inch bar had to cut on both sides of it, like crazy. But yeah, everybody was logging this spring, late spring actually, and yeah, so it's good. I think we're gonna have a lot of wood on the driftwood on the sides of the river, so I think a lot of people will be harvesting wood this fall. That's good. You don't really appreciate all these upbringings as a young person until you're an adult, and then you're like, man, I'm so happy that my parents, the elders, and people with a lot of knowledge took the time to teach me these things, because you don't really think it's, I mean, you listen and you take part in it, but until you're an adult and you use these tools, I'm forever grateful for the knowledge that was passed on to me. So being in Nuilak and living off the land and learning how to harvest and was always something that I was brought up in, that at our cabin out at the coast, from elders, my parents, some friends with a lot of knowledge. So we always watched and adapted with change. There's, even in my young life, I like to say, I'm going to be 40 years old this fall. Doesn't feel like it, but some days it does. The changes that I've seen growing up from when I could remember 5, 6 years old, there's quite a bit of change out there. We've seen the Mackenzie Delta change, channels change, new channels open, a lot of erosion, water levels change. A lot of that has to do with climate change, and also with overabundance of some species. Beavers have a big part, and you don't really take a grasp on how much water those dams could hold back until it happens. So, I mean, I noticed that this spring that the beaver numbers have gone down a little bit. They're not as bad as they used to be 2 years ago. So maybe, I mean, that's something that the elders always told us, that there's cycles for all species, caribou, geese, all the animals and fish that we depend on have cycles, and we see them come and go. They've seen them come and go. I mean, we see a big spike in beavers. There used to never be beavers around, and then there's a big spike in them now. Now the numbers are starting to decline a little bit, so maybe their cycle is dropping. We haven't seen muskrats for quite some time in the Delta, and we're starting to see more muskrats than beavers now, which is really good, so their cycle's coming back. And also, one elder told me that I harvested a blonde muskrat this spring with pink tail and pink feet, and I told him about that, and he said, yeah, he said long ago the elders used to tell me, when you start seeing pink and blonde muskrats, that means they're coming back. The numbers are coming back. And there was a couple harvested this spring, one in the Kalinek, and I harvested one. I think there was one more around here that was harvested too, so I guess that's a good sign. The elders say that they're going to come back. I mean, they witnessed it. I mean, I always say there are professors, they don't have a degree in, that legal document saying that they have they're professors, but I always say they are. Our traditional knowledge has shown so much wisdom and so much knowledge for hundreds of years that's been passed down. It was our teaching. They didn't need a degree. It was something that was just given to them. And they passed it on. They shared it. So I always pay attention to when people tell me things that are more knowledgeable than I am, that lived a lot longer than I have, and I always pass that on too. And I think it's always important that not holding on to that kind of information, that the elders took time to teach you, that you must pass it on. And if you don't, then it stops there. So I always encourage people to share their knowledge. Sometimes it's hard to share some of the knowledge because it's some people like to keep it in their families and things like that. But as long as it's passed on to their family members and to whoever they pass it on to, and they keep sharing that information, because we're in uncertain times right now. We don't know what the future holds. The only thing we do is be ready and keep teaching what we know, keeping connected to our traditional ways and to our harvest, because one day we might have to just keep harvesting for ourselves, and sharing that knowledge is important.